woke up this morning, the sky was.
So hello everyone, my name is Manon Doucette. I'm a published author, and my fantastic co-host and invitee, Mr. William Alan Webb, is with us today, and we're going to pick his brain. We have a lot of questions for him, and he has a lot to teach us. So hello, Mr. Bill.
Greetings. How is everyone?
Oh, don't be shy, you can unmute and answer.
Happy to be here, Bill.
Thank you, John. I've learned plenty from you. So if I have any to share at all, it's like payback, repayment. I can't see the chat, so if you guys do have any questions, just ask.
Yeah, we will. So the very quick presentation, the intro is done, and I had a long list of questions that I sent to our invitee here. So do you have a presentation you want to show us, or you just want me to go and ask the question as we go?
Here's what I thought we would do is go ahead and ask the questions because I have been doing this a little while. Maybe I've got something to share. But I also have a presentation.
Yeah.
And the presentation's not one, if we're going to do, say, 3 or 4 sessions or whatever, then it's not something I have to get through all at once. And I didn't plan, I think today is going to be more of an introduction to not just book covers, but art in general and how you incorporate it into your writing.
Yeah.
And maybe give folks a little bit of something they can play with until the next session so they're a little bit better educated on, what we're talking about.
Sounds good. So let's start this one here because not everyone knows you. So I want people to actually start knowing you and learn about you. So what inspired you to become a writer, and how did you begin your writing journey?
It's almost impossible to pin it down to any one thing. I do remember when I was in first grade, I would draw pictures just constantly. And in my mind, I was making up stories that went along with them. Now, at 5 or 6 years old, they're not particularly well thought out. But as I got older, there used to be these things called newspapers. And I had newspaper routes for about 5 years. And it was really boring to ride your bike and just throw newspapers and do all that. So I would make up stories in my head that I would tell myself as I was doing this. When we got to high school, I started reading all the stuff everybody was reading back then. Conan, all my friends were Conan and existent weird stuff like Herman Hesse and just all kinds of things. And I started the rudimentary series of writing stories. One of which I started in my junior year of high school, has actually not only been published but won an award from a convention, which is a good lesson for it. Don't ever throw anything away, ever. And so when I got to college and my parents were saying, well, what are you going to major in? You're going to be an engineer. You're going to be this. And so after several failed majors, because for me, college was a lot of fun, way more fun than it should have been. I majored in creative writing, and I will say it took me all of about 40 years to unlearn most of what they taught me so that I could actually write things people wanted to read.
Right. Any author in particular influence your work?
I think there's one that I have consciously tried not to let influence my work is Tolkien, because Ursula K. Le Guin said you can't out Tolkien. And so I'm not sure if that's true because Terry Brooks has a career doing it, but regardless, Robert E. Howard, the creator of Conan, is my idol. And the reason he's my idol is he was one of the more successful pulp writers. Pulp writers didn't just write under their own name. They wrote under many, many names, many, many series, and they had to produce a lot of content on a regular basis to get paid and to eat. And I really admire that. And then to top it off, he was really good at what he did. The other is, as a stylist, is a man named Roger Zelazny. And Zelazny was one of the great stylists of the 60s through 80s. Whether you particularly like his work or not, he could write in a number of different styles and do it very well. So, yeah, there you go.
So is your writing style evolved over the years since you published your first book?
Yes. And I had an existential moment where everything changed. I was one of those unfortunate people whose first book was very successful right out of the gate. And I say unfortunate because you get lazy, and I got lazy. And I didn't really work on my style. I had an editor who made sure that everything I published was great. When I was asked to write a story in the Kane Reardon universe, which is a book by Bang Books, I wrote it, and I thought it was a great story. And then I was edited by one of the great editors of our current time, a man named Charles E. Gannon. And there was probably not one paragraph in the entire story, and it was 45,000 words, that did not have yellow lines through it. And what had happened was I knew how to write, but I'd gotten lazy in how I was doing it.
Mm.
And he called me on it. And ever since then, I have consciously made an effort to write more interesting prose and not just settle for the lowest common denominator.
So would you say that was your biggest challenge you face? Like when
Yes,
you wrote
because,
your first book and all?
well, now that was not my first book. The biggest challenge I faced, remember, I tried to get published from I finished my first novel in 1985. And I tried to be published from that point until 2016. So roughly 30 years. Most of that time was not, obviously trad was the only realistic way to go. And trying to be published trad back in those days was harder than it is today. Well, maybe not harder, but it was hard. Very few people ever accomplished it. I got frustrated because a lot of the stuff that was coming out was just not very good. And I could even tell at my level I was writing better. So that was all very discouraging. And in the mid 90s, I quit writing fiction altogether and started writing nonfiction. And I'm a World War II historian. So, and I did that for quite a while until I had the inspiration for this book in 2014 that became my first published novel. And once that happened, it's a long story how it wound up getting published, but the shortcut is through Twitter. Through a writing event on Twitter. And once that was done, then after that, I started understanding the indie market, and I started understanding where we are today, which means there are no obstacles now other than yourself. You know, learning this process is now the biggest challenge any of us have.
It is. So your first book, what was the title of it? And when you got it published, what was the... Go ahead.
It's called Standing the Final Watch.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
And what was the biggest challenge to get it published? That was your very, very first book. So
well, nobody had ever heard of me, and I didn't know anything about how to be published. This was Standing the Final Watch, John. And so I didn't know how to be published. I didn't know anything about self-publishing. And I was trying to find a publisher, which is good, by the way. Starting with a publisher is not necessarily bad, because I did learn a lot about how to put books together, what goes into covers, what goes into uploading to Amazon, all that kind of stuff. That if you're going to do it yourself, you need to know. And so I had somebody to walk me through it and create something really good. She created a much better cover than my publisher did, than I had. And even to this day, she still publishes a lot of stuff for me. But basically, the biggest challenge just was, okay, I've written a book, now what?
Mhm. So do you think it's harder today to publish than in those days, or
No.
it's easier today?
Drastically easier. Now, is it harder to be successful? Yes, it is much harder than it was. There's a lot more competition, and I don't mean competition. I mean in the way that you guys are competitors. What I mean is there's more competition for the reader's attention. Not only books, but they have Netflix and they have movies and you name it. So we're all dealing with a market that really hasn't expanded, but does have a lot more choices than it used to. Yeah.
Right. So where did you find your inspiration for your story and your character?
Everywhere, literally everywhere. One of the things I don't do, and there's two thoughts on this, and I'm the don't do it, but I don't journal, I don't write anything down. And while I'm not a Stephen King fan, I do think On Writing is a really good book in a lot of ways. And in it, he said that if you write down your ideas, you are essentially going to wind up with a notebook full of really bad ideas. Because what I do and what I think is a much better way of going about it is, I'll never lack for stuff to write. And if it's an idea worth my attention, then my subconscious will act on it in the background, and it will come to me as a much better idea. It will come to me as, wait a minute, I see. It happens all the time. A lot of people say it happens in the shower, where you're just thinking about something and your subconscious has been working on it in the background, and it says, boom. Oh, yeah, I see that.
Like a song.
So, yeah, and inspiration, there is no one place. Inspiration is in life around us. And at the end of the day, I think one of the most important things that people always, especially less experienced writers, overlook is people don't read books for plot, and they don't read it for world building. And they don't read it for anything other than characters. And it doesn't matter what the fiction is, it doesn't matter what the genre is. Larry Curry is a great example. He has a very successful series called Monster Hunter International, which you would think is about the monsters and about hunting monsters, which it is. But the reason people keep coming back to it is the characters. My series happens to have I guess it's an iconic character, the Last Brigade series. And people constantly say, I need more Nick. His name is Nick Ongriff. And then they say, I need more Nick. Where's Nick? I need more. That's what keeps people coming back. And so the more you can learn to connect readers with your characters, the better off you're going to be as far as long-term success. Because that's what they're loyal to. I don't know anybody who's ever said, oh, yeah, man, I wish Tolkien had written more about Moria. You know, that was what I keep reading it just to read about Moria or the magic or whatever. Sorry.
That's good. Can you walk us through a typical writing day for you? Do you have any specific routine or habits?
I wish I had one. A typical say that is. Uh, I really don't. I wear a lot of hats as a writer and as a publisher. I have my own publishing company called Hit World Press. Um, as a class teacher, for those who don't know, I teach a writing class on Patreon. It's a paid class, but the pay is $5 a month. So it's a very low bar, but that's because I've learned over the years that so many people will soak up your time and not use the information you've given them. And so you've actually just wound up wasting time on people who aren't going to take your advice, whereas you could have helped someone else with that same time. Anyway, uh, but generally speaking, I panic write and I've got something that's due, like today. And so when I do start writing, I just block out everything and focus and do it. I'm a little held back. I have a hand issue. My finger doesn't work, my ring finger.
Mhm.
And maybe I'll be able to have an operation next month to fix it. Maybe I won't. But it doesn't matter. And nobody cares, like as far as your stuff being due. And um, so, I have to get through it. As far as what I would do for routines and habits, if I could recommend though, is Zed is really good about holding writing sprints, and other places have writing sprints. A friend of mine will let anybody. Her name is Casey Azell. She's a traditionally published as well as indie writer. If you get to know her, she'll let you into her Discord to do writing sprints. So there's all kinds of ways to do writing sprints, and they're a great way to accomplish a whole bunch in a very short period of time. But as far as how my day goes, after I've gotten up and taken care of all the stuff that we all have to do as soon as we get up, I will work till 11 or 11:30 at night doing something, whatever it is, whether it's writing or whatever. I will work till then. I basically don't take time off
Yeah, it's a
because
full-time job.
I waited my whole life to get here. People say, well, you really ought to, back off, take it a little easier. So I waited my whole life to get here. Why would I do that?
Yeah. It's fun. It's our world there, and that was one of the question from someone here. Describe a normal day for. I don't know if she wants me to tell what's my normal day. I'm basically like Bill. I get up in the morning, I sit at my computer and I brainstorm. I have four kind of different book I'm working on, and depending on what I feel in the morning, I jump into that one. I don't know, like 25 nonfiction book that I have to edit and finish and make them the way I want. And if someone on Discord knows I'm working on the book cover, and I'm going to work on the book cover until I'm pleased with it. And I'm very difficult to please, but it's a big 8 hours a day minimum of working from Sudowrite to Vellum, Atticus, ChatGPT, Discord, and everybody I'm connected with, Facebook. And then we have also, Bill is going to be like me there. We have to do our own advertisement, which is also taking a chunk of our day.
Yeah, and if at all humanly possible, I also have to do some self-help. Book I'm listening to right now, it's a little bit older, but the principles are identical. It's called the One-Page Marketing Plan. And it's been around a little while, but it's still valid, and it's a great book. I'm listening to that in the car
Mm-hmm.
when I'm not in the mood to listen to fiction or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, there's so much that and of course, if you go with a publisher, that's fine. And they will do a lot of this for you. But I'm to the point now where if I'm going to go with a publisher, um, if I'm going to go with a publisher, then they're going to have to have that value to me because I'm bringing value to them already. So what are you bringing to me? Now, if you're brand new, okay, that's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But just as far as all that goes, one of the things I want people here to understand is if you decide you do want to go with a publisher, some of the small press publishers now, a few of them have actually higher gross revenue per year than some of the traditional publishers. Tor and Bain in particular. I know one company that makes more money per year than both of them. And so educate yourself on the publishing market.
Yeah. It's not an easy thing, the publishing market. We have a few questions in the chat,
Sure.
like Jade was asking about the how much money we do like a book on Amazon. It's not an easy answer to do because it always depends on how much advertisement you do, how many followers you have. And not everyone is publishing their book for money. Some of us are just publishing because we need to get that stuff I have to get the stuff out of my head. And then I'm doing the advertisement after. But I'm also published in other place. I'm published on Medium, and I get Medium to pay me every month since 2020, I believe. I'm with Medium, or 2022.
Yeah.
It's been a while. 2020. And I get paid every month through them. I have over 300 articles on Medium.
Yeah, understanding Amazon. I actually have a whole series of videos about that on my Patreon channel. It's a pretty big topic. It's not hard. I mean, it's not like there's anything particularly difficult about it, but there is a lot to understand and know, and it really kind of transcends this particular class. It's its own thing.
Yeah, it is. So let's go for the next question. So how do you deal with writer blocks when you have some? Because if at some point you have a lot of information in your own head, and you don't seem to have a lot of those.
If I'd ever had it, I'd tell you.
Okay.
My honest opinion, I don't believe in it.
Good. And with Sudowrite, it's impossible to have writer blocks anyway.
If you're a writer, you sit down and you write. It doesn't matter. I think one of the things that people may confuse this with is when you're writing, what you produce doesn't have to be great literature. It just needs to be on a page. Ernest Hemingway famously said, and excuse the language, but I'm quoting, all first drafts are shit. And then Jane Smiley, I think it was Jane Smiley, said the only purpose of a first draft is to exist. So you get it down if you have to write the phone book. If you have to copy the phone book, you get it down. So.
All right. So let's get closer to our subject of the book cover.
Sure. And I do have a presentation. I tell you what.
Yeah.
You want me to go ahead and kind of go over what I've got? And
Sounds good. Because that's where I was going there. So which one of your books you feel the most connected and going through your book cover? So as we have the 30 minutes in, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to switch to the books.
Yeah, and I'm going to show you a few different ones. I've created so many book covers that, I couldn't possibly do them all. But I am going to go through a few things. And it's not just covers, by the way. What I want to emphasize is that once you master art, you're going to then figure out ways to use it that are not just book covers. So we're going to try this, and we're going to see whether or not my little advanced thing works. Let's see. Zoom. I'm going to share screen. And if you can't see it, please tell me, and I'll attempt to do something.
It's coming.
Can you see it?
Not yet. It's coming. Oh, there it is.
Got it.
Okay. Now you can see it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Let me see if I can expand it. Slideshow. There we go. All right. Hide this. Building, designing, and composing book covers and/or internal artwork. I created that image just for this class, just to show you that And the fonts could probably be a little bit more higher contrast, but whatever.
And
That is the prompt that I used for it, which you may not be able to see here, but because of this,
We saw it. Yeah,
these
we
things
can
do.
see it now.
yeah. So a female artist designed a book cover at her drawing table. She's delving and deep in concentration, epic composition, 8000 K, AR 5.3 V 6.1 P1.
Yeah. The P1, and this is the reason for showing you this, okay? This is Midjourney. With Midjourney now, you can train it to create images to your preferences. You go to their website and you like a certain number of images. I think it's 200, and it then takes those and builds a database. Says, okay, this individual likes these. You can do that more than once if you have like fantasy preferred covers or literary fiction or whatever. And what that allows you to do then is to have a database where you can personally create art that isn't just a book cover, but might be for an ad or might be internal art, things like that. So the question to Jet that I used for this next one, I'm going to show you, this is an example of ways you can kind of do this. I asked ChatGPT, brainstorm with me, what would be a good image to represent the contents of a PowerPoint presenting a presentation using a cute animal. And it gave me these 7. I then said, okay, cool. Let's try number 6. And is it going to show it? I don't know. Maybe it's not. There it is. Well, it's not showing.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh.
It's not showing you this one. I forgot to. So it creates it in WebP format, and I forgot to change it. Or forgot to upload it. Anyway, it was okay, but it was very cartoony. This is what I created using that same prompt.
Wow.
We are with
That's
the hedgehog.
so cute.
Yeah. That's the same prompt I used in ChatGPT to create, which was a cartoon. No, it was the same exact prompt, no difference.
Wow.
Okay. And so you can control this. You can tell it what to do. This is all very possible. There's no pointer in the hand, but if I really wanted to, I could put a pointer in that hand using one of the programs I'm kind of going to be talking about as we go forward with this. So what makes for a great book cover and why does it matter? Potential readers do judge a book by its cover. You can complain all you want, but that's just the reality. Hang on. This so we can all. Yes, there we go. Probably doing that more. The cover rarely sells the book by itself, though. That's not its purpose. A cover's purpose is to move the reader onto the next stage in the buying process to spark further interest. On Amazon, that would lead to reading the description, which will be begun by a hook, 1 or 2 lines that get the reader really geared in. One of the reasons my first book probably did sell very well is because I had a hook that Amazon later forced me to change, but not for a few years. And the hook read, America may have been destroyed, but Nick Ongriff will kick your ass to resurrect her. It gets right to the point.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went into the description. So the blurb led people to read the description. ChatGPT, just so you know, happens to be really good at coming up with blurbs that you can then take and go, okay, I like this better, and you can rearrange it and do all that kind of stuff. A book cover should have compelling imagery. The cover should feature strong, evocative visuals that relate to the book's theme, tone, or central concept. Whether it's a minimalist design or detailed artwork, it should spark curiosity and give potential readers a sense of what to expect from the story. Now, you guys all know, and especially the ladies among us who like reading whatever kind of romance, there are a lot of covers out there, Sarah J. Maas being one, but there's a lot more, where there's a lot of scroll work, and maybe there's a rose or something else with a really cool font and all that. And there's not really that much of a central image. And that's one style. That's not I could not design such a cover myself because that's just not what I'm good at. But I recognize there are people out there who do that and do it well. But for me, I go to the next thing. You should have a clear, eye-catching title and author name. The title and author's name must be legible and stand out. Don't try to get fancy here. Use fonts that reflect the genre. Bold, stylized fonts for thrillers or elegant scripted fonts for romance. In some of the examples I'm going to show you in a little while, I'll show you the different fonts that I have used over the years to accomplish this. You have to balance text size and placement to ensure that the title grabs attention while not overpowering the overall design. As you become James Patterson, your name may become bigger than the title, but starting out that way, probably best not to do that. Emotional appeal, the book covers evoke an emotional response, whether it's excitement, curiosity, mystery, or serenity. The cover should connect with the reader on an emotional level. Excuse me, allergies. Making them want to explore the story within. Now, ways to obtain the perfect cover. And this is where we start getting into all kinds of stuff. You can buy from a cover artist. There are all different price ranges. As I told you, a buddy of mine, he does short story covers that require 3 hours or less for $25. And he's really good, by the way. He'll do a full print, ebook, and audio cover for $75. And I think that's good for 8 hours or something like that. Like I said, he's really not trying to make money at this, but he's on the low end. Expensive is not always better, though. I paid a guy $200 and sent him an image and said, I'd really like a cover, using this image. And the image he sent me back was worse than the one I'd sent him. So, and I did not use that cover because everybody hated it. So ask fellow authors if they have recommendations. If you've listened to me at all, you're going to know that I harp on, if you're in any variation on horror, sci-fi, or fantasy, and it doesn't matter what the iteration is, or comics or anything like that, you have to go to conventions as much as you're financially and time-wise able to. Because that's where a lot of this information gets passed on. So if at all possible, you can do that and ask them, who's your cover artist?
Bill, we have a question.
Yeah.
How did you know that everybody hated that cover?
So when I do a series, for example, Hit World's a great example. I create a Facebook group, the Hit World Developmental Group, for the other authors in that series who may be writing in it, and any fans that want to give input. And that's all it is. It's not for other people. It's a closed group.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way I'm able to share things and say, what do you guys think of this? And any fans that happen to be there are automatically going to feel involved in the process. And so they're going to become very loyal to your product.
Makes sense.
So, anyway,
We don't think
and then
cover.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was reading to help you to go back into the presentation.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So if you as the artist object to using AI in the process, and if you're on a Sudowrite call, I'm assuming you don't, but if you do, make sure it's spelled out from the very beginning, or find a different artist. I have a friend who's been publishing books, which he does not allow AI to be used on his covers, but he never told anybody that. He just, he went out and he bought covers. And I pointed out to him that he hadn't done a cover this year that didn't have AI in it in some form or fashion. And you can you guys, if you've worked with AI art at all, you know that it leaves artifacts.
Yeah.
You can tell. And I pointed out to him on the covers, and he's like, so what he now does is he writes a contract about what's expected from both parties. He doesn't particularly object to AI. He just doesn't want to have it come back on him if like a law is passed or Amazon decides to, heavy-handed eliminate stuff. He's just protecting his company is all he's doing. But if you're going to work with an artist, try to sketch out your ideas for what the cover might look like. It doesn't have to be really good. It can be stickman, but give them an idea of what you're looking for so they're not going at it cold. Also, don't be afraid to ask for references on previous work. If it's somebody you haven't heard of, now I will tell you that there's a guy who came along about a year and a half ago. He lives down in Brazil, and he started showing his covers around to me and a bunch of friends and all that. And he was selling them pretty cheap. He was selling pre-made covers. And some people liked him and started using him, and he started becoming more and more accepted, more and more using, and he started adapting his style to what people wanted. And now he's got as much work as he can handle. He's cheap. He's like $200, but still in Brazil, $200 goes a long way, or so I'm told. Okay, moving on. Alternatives. There are a lot of pre-made covers out there, some of which are quite good. All you have to do is Google it, find an art, or see if an artist in particular does it. I get emails all the time about pre-made covers, so I keep up with what they look like. They're all going to have a samey look to them, but that's not necessarily bad. Extra material from otherwise expensive artists. So one guy who in particular, a buddy of mine, who, by the way, is a Sudowrite member, there's an artist who charges named what's his name? It'll come to me. Anyway, charges $1,500 for a cover, an ebook cover, but that also includes print. However, about a year and a half ago, he had a bunch of art that wasn't to anything, and he was just selling it, and I think it was $50 just to raise some money and all that. Well, my buddy Kevin bought it, and it became the cover to a book. He then took a bunch of his stories and put them together, and that became the cover. So he's got this fantastic cover for a book that really didn't justify spending $1,500, but did justify spending $50. Others, well-known artists may have reused art, and this is particularly true for like paintings and stuff. He's gone now, but a guy named Mitch Faust did fantasy covers for traditional publishing for many, many, many years. And he was from Memphis, which is my hometown. And his covers were $2,000. And this was back in the day when that was really a lot of money. But those paintings, eventually, the rights reverted to him, and he was selling the reuse right for $200. And so you could have gone to him and said, and I bet if you'd have bought more than one, you'd have got it for a lot less than that, because they're just sitting around, right? Not earning him any money. You can also go at a convention. There's going to always be a lot of artists there that you can talk to about, what do you charge for this? Well, do you do interior art? And what would that cost? That kind of thing. Public domain art. Now, you got to be 100% certain you have the legal right to use it. But think of all the art that has gone into public domain many, many, many years ago. And some of it just great art that you legally can have the right to use. Amazon, one of the big things on Amazon for people who are making money is republishing public domain books and doing something different with them. Jumpmaster Press, and these guys are friends of mine, they are taking classic books and having them rebound into hardbacks using a very special black paper that they get from Italy. And these are really expensive things, but the books cost them nothing. And if you're a big fan of Edgar Rice Burroughs' Mars series, and they've got this really special edition of A Princess of Mars, which they do, then boom. Also, the biggest thing you can do is bestsellers in your genre. Go to that book and look at the read sample part. Click it, and it will show you the title page and the copyright page. And it very well may have a cover artist page where it tells you who did the cover art. And that's a great way to find, artists that you might want to buy. Okay. These are places to obtain images on your own and to also to manipulate them. Personal photographs. Don't for 1 second think you can't work with a personal photograph and turn it into something really good, because you can. Might require some manipulation. Fiverr. I'm not a big fan of Fiverr, but a lot of people like it. DeviantArt. DeviantArt now has a thing where you can not only generate your own AI art, but you can then turn around and sell it. So the images tend to be very cheap. Shutterstock, of course, they've been around a long time, but they've got some really great images. The one I use mostly, Deposit Photo. 100 images, $80. I use it all the time. Alami, never used them, but they're similar. iStock Photo, Unsplash, ThinkStock, which is an aggregator, and there's lots and lots of others. AI, DALL-E, okay? DALL-E is what's used through Sudowrite when you use Visualize, and it's also what's used through ChatGPT. Yeah. And there's a website too, and I think the version there is even better, but I'm not sure. I don't use it all that much. Midjourney. They both have Discord and a website. The website has a learning curve, but it currently gives you the most control over the image. I mean, you can really, really get very specific with it. And then when you've got it trained on what you like, I mean, you can really come up with some pretty good stuff, in 5 minutes. Based Labs. Now, this is one a lot of people don't use, but have not heard of, but it has a whole bunch of different features in it. For example, it has a face swap, where you can actually take a face and swap it onto an existing image. There's a lot of them that do that, but Based Labs has it internally, but it also has an AI generator. The best thing I've ever done with it, I'm not showing today because it's not safe for work. It does that too, in case you're, but not like porn. Just if you're doing, Frank Frazetta, for example, did a lot of fantasy stuff, but he really liked the female body. And so it wasn't always as covered up as some people feel comfortable with. And Based Labs will do that kind of thing. I personally mostly use Midjourney. Trace Journey is also a Discord server that has multiple things in it. It can vectorize an image. That doesn't work so well for images, but it works great with logos or anything like a logo. It does a really good job at removing the background and maintaining the quality of the original image. Remove.bg will remove the background, but if you want to do it and have the remaining image be a really high quality, then it's a pay plan. Otherwise, it's free. Tuxp.com is really cool. If you've never gone there, you can go in and you can take like an AI image or any image and do some manipulation with it. It's a little on the crude side, but it's also free. So, play around with it if you want to come up with. BookBrush, of course, is one of the standard ways to create not only book covers, but ads and that kind of thing. So art programs, and this is where we're starting to get into individual stuff. I use Clip Studio Paint. It is the world's leading anime art program, animation program. It does it all. It does have a learning curve. I've been using it for many years now, But for what we do, and this is one of the things I'm going to be showing in future classes, is how do you actually use this to do what we're talking about? And so Photoshop, I know a lot of people use Photoshop. They've been using it for years. I don't use it, never have. So I can't show you how to use that or GIMP. GIMP is free, but I understand the learning curve is pretty bad. And then there's Canva. I have a Canva subscription. So far I've only used it for videos, but I'm still learning. So maybe I'll use it in the future. I'm not right now.
I am.
Okay. All right. And Canva probably works great for image manipulation. I just don't know how to show you.
Yeah, and they grow a lot, Canva, in the last 2 years. They change and ameliorate their system so much, a bit like Sudowrite. There's a question for you, Bill.
Yeah.
Did you ever try to hand draw your own cover?
Oh, sure. Sure. And I'm not that good. Okay. Well, I'm not. I mean, I'm an okay artist. I have images that I've done and I'm really proud of them. I think they came out pretty well, but they're not cover worthy. Now, what you can do with those is if you want to use an AI to do that, you can import that into, say, Midjourney, and then tell them to do an image and give it a prompt based on the one that you drew. And using Clip Studio Paint, one of the things that I plan for 2025, and it's on my business plan. By the way, this is a business. If you're going to be serious about it, I suggest you start learning how to come up with a business plan. I've already done mine for 2025, and it's pretty extensive. One of the things on that plan is learning how to use Clip Studio Paint's 3D features. I don't want to get into that today. That's a whole other thing. But you can buy pre-made 3D images and then manipulate them against a background. That's how most covers are actually created today, even by people who you pay for them. Okay, but before we move on to covers, let's talk about ads.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one I did for it's an urban fantasy series. It's a Christian urban fantasy series. And Alex there on the left is fighting this demon. And whether you like the ad or not, it proved to be pretty effective. And a lot of the people involved were, I got some snarky comments too, but you're going to get that anytime you're right. You do any kind of advertising, but don't expect that people are always going to be very nice. And I don't mean snarky about the image. I'm talking about like the subject matter. For that same series, this is one I did, and this is 2 years ago. This has no AI in it whatsoever. And if you like it, which I kind of do, I kind of think I did a pretty good job with it. But this is no AI. This is maybe two images that I bought, and then the rest I put together.
But is the format a particular product?
What do you mean?
It doesn't look like a book to me. I don't know. Is it
No,
an audio book or?
This is an ad. These are just showing you other things you can do once you've learned the process, and then I'm going to start getting into ads. I mean, book covers. So right now, John, all I'm kind of going over is just showing you some other things you can do above and beyond book covers, because book covers are going to be a whole thing. This is another thing you can do, okay? Where this is all the books and titles I've done through 2023, and I update it every year. And you have you can use multiple purposes for it and all that. Again, once you've mastered the imagery and the technique of how to use your program. You can do logos. These are two different series. This is a banner I created last year for Marisa Wolf, who's the series runner on Valkyrie's initiative. And this is a series that I'm actually in the process of creating called The Unbroken Lion, which is about Hannibal after the Battle of Cannae, which he lost, but turns out to be a good thing. This is an ad I ran for Judgment Day on the first 3 books. It's a collage. And, you know, if nothing else, it's eye-catching. That's a compendium of the first 3 covers, by the way. And I removed the typography and then put them together as a mural.
Yeah, MJ said this looks great, and I agree.
Yeah, it's
Well,
great.
thank you. Yeah, and so when you get to Judgment Day, this image is the first cover. This is the second, and this is the third. I probably should have cleaned up a few things. It's a Christian trilogy, so I probably should have gotten rid of, you know, the nipple here, and there's a little bit of artifacts here and stuff like that. Hmm?
Yeah, I saw the AI artifact that you told us earlier.
Yeah. And so, but remember, this was probably a year. This was 23, so I probably did this a year and a half ago, year anyway. And Midjourney has been greatly updated since then. My skills have upgraded and all this. So, you know, it's a little bit on the older side, and yet it's still effective. It's not ever going to be not effective. Okay. You can also do Amazon A+ content. There is no free advertising benefit your book or books can have that is more effective than Amazon A+ content. Does anybody not know what it is? Just speak up.
Why don't you explain to us, dear?
Okay. If you go on to if you look up Standing the Final Watch, for example, you'll see a whole bunch of images below it. And you know, you'll read the description, and then there's a whole bunch of art and some helicopters and stuff like that. Well, that's all A+ content. Whenever you go into a really big name author, you're going to see all that kind of stuff. Well, Amazon allows you to do that, and it's free. You can only put up 5 modules, and you have to learn. It's another thing you got to learn. But hey, you know, it is free, and so it's the next step in promising your reader, who might still be kind of, well, I don't know, you know, I've read the description, it sounds good, but well, then they see this, maybe that's what's going to edge them into saying, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And gives them an idea of what they're going to read inside, just more idea. Coming up with that content is the hard part. And so what I'm trying to teach you today is how to go about doing that, leveraging image manipulation along with, you know, getting the images yourself. And so a few examples of what I've done. This is from early 1992. And so you kind of know, okay, this was 2.5 years ago with the AI. This is currently 9 different images. The background is one image, and every one of the rhinos, and by the way, they're called rapocos, but we'll just call them orange rhinos. Every one of them is a different image. I used this because I wanted you to see, as I was in the process of creating the final product, this is the first 9 images. It wound up being 47 images. And this is what it turned out to be. Now, maybe you're looking at it going, what the hell am I looking at? But for me, if nothing else, this shows people the you know, what the series is about, you know, what they can expect from inside the book. You've got tracers here, which are kind of hidden, and you've got a laser over here that's hitting the armored car, and you've got these lizard guys firing lasers, and you know, so this is my A+ content for The Trash Man, the first book in Hit World. This is for a World War II book I did. again, just, they glimpse at it. It gives them an idea. Anybody who's familiar with the battle would look at it and go, okay, that's a more concentrated. This is what I actually wound up using as A plus content for that same book. This is a book about World War II on the Russian front. And as it turned out, only about this part over here fit on on where I wound up using it. So this was all cut out, but that's the full image. Now we get into actual book covers that I've created using this methodology. This is the Hit World covers so far. I don't know if you guys like them or not, but they're certainly consistent in tone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, there's two of them that I did not do. I touched them up a little bit, but I didn't do the covers. I'm curious if you guys can figure out which ones they are.
The Wendigo.
Valkyrie's Initiative.
I'm sorry?
Valkyrie's Initiative
Yes.
The Wendigo.
and Skinwalker.
Nope.
No.
I did Skinwalker.
The Wendigo.
Wendigo. Yep. The reason being is that while I did all the composition, all the layout, everything like that. Nevertheless, I did use AI in creating some of these covers to a very small extent anyway. Craig Martell, and if you don't know who Craig Martell is, he's one of the biggies in current indie publishing. Well, Craig is not a fan of AI and didn't want it used. And I'm like, sure, man, that's cool. However, the artist did give us a cover here that you couldn't really see anything about the features of the Wendigo. So I went in and did a layer over it to bring out some of the features so you could actually see what it was. It was really blending into the background too much. And, Valkyrie's Initiative was done by a very well-known cover artist. He's relatively cheap. No, wait, no. That's the expensive guy. Never mind. And so, I wasn't about to not use that. Trash Man, that's the third cover that book has had. And that's probably 20 different images. And so one of the things I wanted to show you today, I do want to show you a couple other things. When you do your own covers, you can also do print covers. You'll have to if you're going to print. Well, do you guys like this?
It's nice, but there's nothing in your back cover. You just put an image. There's no blurb or by the author or
No
anything
blurb.
like that.
Nope.
That's
And that's on
different.
purpose.
That's different, but I like it.
It's different, and it's not even, and there's no point to it. Remember that nobody who's buying a print cover online is going to see the back cover.
True.
The back cover is only there for in-person events. That's it.
So it looks good next to each other.
Yes. And if you look, if I'm in person, the way we're talking about this, and remember, although it's Kisses and Chaos book 1, it's the fourth book in Hit World. Okay. You don't have to have read the others, but it's still the fourth. So you're actually talking to the person about this. And so there's all kinds of ways that when you're talking to someone in person, to sell a book. And the way I would, if I'm talking to them about this, I'm going to say, now, if you really want to know how you're going to feel after you've read this book, because, I'm going to say, pick up the book for a second. Let me tell you, if you really want to know how you're going to feel after you read this book, and you're going to, when you get to it where it says the end, turn it over and look at the back. And so they're going to see this guy with a deer head screaming and go, you're going to be so upset that it's over and can't wait for the next one.
That kind of solves some problem when you do a non-fiction book like on meditation. The first cover is like someone who really looking to get peace, and at the back of the cover is the person after he meditate. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So I do usually put content on the back of the book, okay? But I loved this particular image so much
Mhm.
that I didn't want to cover it up. And I didn't think it needed anything. I couldn't think of anything I could put on the back that would, improve my chances of selling this book to someone. And so then what I was able to do is include and overlay the hand onto the spine, but making sure that it's not covering up any of the lettering. And although, and I'll show you at the top, I got to move this, but if you see at the top, the lightning also goes onto the spine, and the flames here go here. So it kind of ties it all together. And, there's just, if it didn't work, by the way, if I thought this was hindering me in some way, then I could just go back and change it anytime I want, put some description there. But I thought you guys might enjoy seeing something that's a little different, a little outside the bounds, and some of the things you can do with these kinds of things. This is another series I write. This is noir, set in 1938 New Orleans. And I picked a selection to show you what we wound up going with and some of the early ones. So this was the first cover of Jazzman's Requiem, the first book in the series. I love the image. I think it's a great cover, but it just didn't quite catch the eye, and it was really hard to make that a look for the rest of it. So then we came along and did an alternate cover, which I liked much better. But the publisher, and I didn't show you this, but she said, let's change the font. And she changed the font where it looks like these others. So now if you look up Crescent City Killer or Jazzman's Requiem, theirs look exactly like this. The Jazzman, the Jester, is actually the back cover of Crescent City Killers, because these are two books in one. Does anybody remember the old Ace doubles, where you would flip the book over and it would be a different book?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you can't really do that anymore because to set up a book that way, publishing would be virtually impossible. But what you can do is have two different books, and the Jester is the back cover for Crescent City Killers. The only one that doesn't have two books in one is Back Alleys and Side Streets, and that's because it's four different stories in one. So these are all 25 to 35,000 word stories, and there's two per book. And I'm showing you this again as a different way to do book covers.
I like the red letter that make us feel this is a series going on, and every book you see on Amazon with those red, like white, and the red on the white, like that is belong to your series.
And the font is very much from that era of the 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we picked this particular font. And I'm not going to get into fonts today and how you go about it and all that, but they're really critical to the success of your stories. For example, this font is one that a lot of people within the urban fantasy genre use.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered that by asking. And most of the authors didn't have a clue what font they were using. But I finally found one who did. He goes, oh, yeah, that's so-and-so. And same thing with these. So, networking helps you a lot learn what's actually out there. Now, just to also show you, all three of these are non-AI. There's no AI whatsoever in any of these. These are all images I found. I'm pretty sure I found them all on Deposit Photo. They're all short stories. These are not books. These are short stories.
You have a few questions, Bill.
Yeah.
They want to know where you got your font and if you have the license for those fonts.
That's why we're not going into it today, is because fonts are tricky.
Yeah.
And yes, I do have the license for them. Yes, I have the license for those fonts. I can't remember exactly where I found them, but it's on one of the font sites that are out there, DeFonts or something like that. But yes, I bought the license for them.
You have a question too. Don is having his hands up.
Sure.
Yes, Bill, you had mentioned you have a friend who does book covers at a very reasonable rate. You mentioned $25 for 3 hours of work.
Yeah.
But you had also mentioned at the very beginning of this session that was that you had a friend who was very reasonable, but it's more for books with no potential. That line just sent nerve-wracking grief into me. What do you mean by books with no potential?
Low potential. Well, so I what I mean by that is, generally speaking, someone who is, I know a kid who I was mentoring through my fraternity on publishing books and all that kind of stuff, and I worked with him for 2 years. He was bound and determined he was going to write a book about his grandmother. And he wanted it to be superb. He wanted the cover to be great. He wanted the book to be great. But let's face it, nobody's going to buy it outside of his family. And he knew that. Okay? But he still wanted it to be a really first-class production. So we did that, and he published it. And that would be the kind of book I'm talking about. Where, I mean, if you wanted to hire him to do a book with lots of potential, he'd do it. But that's not really why he's in business. He's there to try and help folks who can't afford more, or maybe they're going to do a short story like these that I've got up, and all that. And he does use AI to do them, just because searching the sites like Deposit Photo and Shutterstock, well, that takes a lot of time. It took me, I don't know how long to come up with that image of Bigfoot. Long time. Did that answer your question? Don, did that answer your question?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, you have another question. They want to know the one on the screen there. They seem to be a series, but are they standalone story for each book?
Yes. So the Last Brigade universe, which is that image at the top, that's my main universe. It is mostly just military sci-fi and very little sci-fi at that. However, I love stuff like this too. So these, if you'll notice, they're all called A Fantastic Story in the Last Brigade universe. Well, what that tells people is these are, out there stories.
Non-canon, perhaps?
Well, they're canon, kind of, sort of, but I don't really ever, for example, I'll give you a great example, John. There's a character in my books whose sister supposedly is a Choctaw seeress. And the River Walking Spirits is about her grandmother. Now, people in the books are like, okay, sure, yeah. The local Apaches who have kind of adopted her, they all revere her. But the others are all like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. She's a nice person. We're not going to bother her with it. We don't believe it. Well, this is about her grandmother. And since I really like to bring stuff, it's about the yellow fever epidemic of 1878, and it's about Lewis and Clark. I don't know if you knew it, but Meriwether Lewis stopped in Memphis on his way east before he was murdered, and ties into that. So that's what that's about, a character in the book. The Hairy Man is about another character in the book who's actually fairly prominent, and she mentions this story in passing to one of the characters in one of the main books. But they never, and he's kind of like a Bigfoot. Well, that's not what the people in the mountain we call him. You know, we call them hairy men. Oh, okay, sure. And then the final one is actually a canon beginning story for some of the characters in the book. But that doesn't mean it actually happened the way it's here. This is the way they perceive it. And so they're all kind of on the periphery, if you will. They're all short stories. And let me tell you what, they've all made me really good money. If you look up the Hairy Man in particular, you're going to see that it has a lot of ratings and reviews. And for a short story that's made, I think it's 11,000 words, to have that many, you know, that's very atypical. And so I included these just because they all three been very successful stories on their own, but the covers were created by me without using AI in any way, shape, or form. So, you know, you can do it just using Deposit Photo or one of the others.
And do you print these at all for shows? Are they really short that way?
Actually, hang on, since you asked. Oh, since you asked, and I know right where they are.
He should sell advertising on the back of his chair.
I'm sorry. Are y'all seeing my chair or the
Yeah.
Just when you got up, we saw the back of your chair. It looked like a good place for an ad.
Are you not able to see my PowerPoint?
No,
We
we're seeing
see
your PowerPoint.
We see both.
We see you, both of you.
Well, that's weird. Okay.
We've got the
That'll help this then. So
we've got the chat
it is-
open. Yeah, I can see it.
That's a print copy of the Hairy Man.
How thick is it?
Very,
15
very
page.
thin. But
That's
it
very
has
cute.
it has a purpose. Okay. Okay, there's the back.
Nice.
Stop. Here's the print copy of River Walking Spirits. Okay.
It is good.
Thank you. I do have one of Ghost of Voodoo Village too. Now, if anybody wants to buy them, well, that's great. But that's not why I created them. I created them because when I'm at a convention and someone says, I would really like to, you know, well, I don't know about this. I don't know how many I want to buy. If I'm showing them the Last Brigade, I do this with all my stuff, by the way, but since you asked about these. So if I'm at a con and you're looking at my books and you're looking at the first one, I'm going to say, now, tell you what, I do have a con special, which I do. If you buy the first three, I will throw in, you know, either one of those that you want me to. So you're going to get a free book. If you buy all the first six, I'm going to give you 5 free books. And they're going to be these 3. One is going to be a guide to the universe. And another one's going to be, I think it's the first in a spinoff series called Task Force Zombie. Well, the thing about it is that rather than discounting the books, the cost of this book landed is going to be a lot less than, in fact, the cost of both these books landed is going to be a lot less than if I were to discount, say, the first 3 books. So my net profit is going to be higher by giving away the 2 books. Plus, if they really like the books, well, they may give them to a friend to read. And they go, oh, man. So they're just additional entry points into the series. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What is landed?
Oh, that's what it cost me, not only for the cost of the book, but taxes and shipping.
Thanks.
Yeah, you have to keep up with what this stuff costs to know whether you're making any money or not.
Mhm.
Okay.
Someone wants to know if you're going to the International Book Convention.
No, I only go at this point in my career. Okay. I'm going to be, I'm not 70, but I'm not that far from it. And so, for me to attend a con now, I either have to be the guest of honor and they're paying my expenses, or it has to be profitable. I have to be able to turn a profit. I have one convention I attend per year that I'm not going to make money at, and I know that, but I go because it's all my friends are there. It's a networking convention. It's just fun, and that's Liberty Con in Chattanooga. Oh, and while I'm on the subject, is anybody here live anywhere close to Northwest Georgia? Just say so if you do.
Nothing so
Okay. Okay, I'll take that as a no. I've got a con weekend after this, so that's why I was asking. Okay, let me see what else we've got here. Okay, that's the last of that I had, but I'm not done sharing yet. Can y'all see this?
right now it's black.
Black.
Okay, hang on a minute. Let me
It's the end of
unshare.
slideshow. Click to exit.
Yeah, let me stop that, and now I'm going to reshare. Okay, y'all should be able to see this here in just a second.
Yeah, we see your stuff
Yes.
spending.
Okay,
Mhm.
this is what I've been talking about all day. This is Clip Studio Paint. All right, and the interface is, you guys are going to look at this and go, oh dear God, what has he gotten me into? There is a lot. It's an extremely powerful program, but for what your purposes are, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's you have to worry about this kind of stuff. All right. The more you learn, the better it's going to be. But all of this is layers, and that's the big thing I want you to understand here is everything you do is a layer. Now, I think, yeah, on the image, I imported just that one image. Okay, so I can't take it out. But it also had layers on top of it. I left these, by the way, in on purpose, just so you know, Manon, because they actually kind of look like sparks and there's a fire there.
Yeah.
But I should have taken these out. And this, by the way, this was done last year as well, so it's not new. But imagine that I imported this image, and which I did, and then had to correct something. So I had to correct the magazine on this. And I think what I did was, I tell you what I'll do. I'll give you a really brief illustration of something you can do here, and how kind of this all works. I wasn't prepared for this, but I'd planned on an hour and a half, Manon. That's probably longer than you did, but I figured that was it. We're almost there. So, but let's say I wanted to move this magazine. I'm using a tool that will allow me to do that. I have to first, hang on. I forgot to do something. Sorry. I need this to be a raster layer and not a, this is what happens when you try and do stuff on the fly. I have to select that layer. I didn't have that layer selected. Okay, let's go back and do this. So let's say that I wanted this somewhere else. I then you can either copy it, so you've got two of them, or you can cut it out. So I'm going to cut it. I hope. Yeah, I did. And I'm going to move it. Now, yes, I've got this gap here. But if I were actually going to do this, then I could just do the same process, copy some of this and move it up to fill in that blank. this can be done very quickly once you've learned how. Now, I'm not going to do that clearly because this is a finished cover and all that, but manipulating any of this stuff is all pretty easy. I'm trying to see what I might have up here I could show you. Yeah, there's my little guy. That's, by the way, if you look at it, if you remember, he did not have a pointer,
There he does.
but there he does. But if I put a pointer in his hand and just ran out of time to get it finished and all that kind of stuff. But I'm working on this, the cover for Shadows May Fall. It's already finished, but there's a couple of tweaks I want to make to it. So anyway, I don't think I have anything else up. I had this, but that was just for you guys' benefit. So that's all the images I had to share today because I really wanted to leave a couple of minutes for questions, anything like that as we wrap up. Once we come back on the next, what I plan to do is hopefully everybody will take some of what I've done and start trying to do some of this themselves. If nothing else, find images you like. And I'll start going over building things in Clip Studio Paint and creating covers and all that kind of stuff. And then maybe if these folks have some of theirs they would like me to play with a little bit, I can show them something about how to do that.
So one of the questions that's in the chat is some of your books have two author names, and why?
Oh, I co-write a lot. One of the things I'm really good at is coming up with series concepts. And I will then take a lot of, most of these are people who are not nearly as experienced as me. John showing off with his hand-raising ability. A lot of these people are less experienced than me. And so co-authoring with a more established author is a great way to, it's face swap. Yeah, perfect. Co-authoring with someone more experienced than you is a great way to be introduced to their readers and a great way to learn things because you're cooperating with them at a level that they can't teach because it's not teaching. You're working together and it changes the dynamic. And so you learn certain things. For example, on not me, but Marisa Wolf, with whom you may have noticed I've written 2 books, has been doing a lot of this in other places. Well, does anybody here know who David Weber is? Just say yes or no. Well,
No, Nina, maybe.
You mentioned it at our last talk.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, David Weber is a really famous science fiction author. He writes for Baen, he writes for Tor. He's created something called the Honorverse around Honor Harrington to the point where there is a worldwide fan club. And these people are absolute fanatics. They dress up in costumes. There's an official uniform, the whole bit. Anyway, so Marisa began getting to know these people, working with them to the point where now she's going to be co-writing books with David. David Weber doesn't know me from Adam, but for her, she leveraged that to move on so that now she has a name for herself. She's published for Baen, and she's going to be writing books with him. And so there's a lot of this. If you look up, if any of y'all know who Larry Curry is, he writes Monster Hunter International. Well, there's a guy named Jason Cordova who is started out writing in the same way I have and all that. He's now co-writing Monster Hunter International books with Larry. I try to do a lot of that with, and I started off with my friends, but I co-wrote some books in my Last Brigade universe with a guy named John Babb. He's unfortunately gone now, but he was a former Assistant Surgeon General of the U.S. and he had information I couldn't begin to have, but I had a following. And so we wrote some books together and they've been very successful. So, Brandon, good job for you, buddy. If you've got a Paint Clip Studio Paint EX, you'll get a discounted upgrade to version 3 if you want it, and I would do it, yes. Anyway, other questions? Come on, guys.
Any question, guys? It's time to ask. I know someone wanted to go back to your first, the trio of your story. They wanted to see the image again. They could not figure out the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, which one?
The one with the woman and the
The very beginning or
yeah,
one of them?
yeah, the one with April.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Lena, you're breaking up.
The one with the April, the woman in her PJ. Yeah, she's cutting off.
Oh, sure. Hang on. I know which one you're talking about. All right, let me,
Thanks.
let's see. That one?
No, keep going. Keep going. That one.
Oh, okay.
She wanted to figure out the 1, 2, and 3. Oops, you went too far.
That one?
No, that's the one before that one. Stop there.
Stop here? Not that.
The one, the one with the trio.
This is all happening ironically. Black as well, so I'm trying to desperately do
Think
this
about
as
it.
well.
I'm gonna go
Thank
let
you
this
all.
guy out, and I'll be right back. Hang on.
So he's having the same problem than me. My dogs are in the background barking. And he left it on the wrong page.
Also, there was John was asking in the chat if we can get a link to Bill's presentation, because I think that'd be great for us to have as well.
Yeah, what I'm going to do after this is done is going to do the video is going to get compiled, and I'm going to ask Bill to send me his slideshow, and I'm going to compile my slideshow with his, and I'm going to keep bashing and make sure that we have all the information uploaded by the end of the week.
Okay, so what we got is that's not the one, right?
Yes.
That one. Okay. Okay, cool. While y'all are looking at that, I can't find the one I wanted to show you. As you might imagine, I have a lot of images. I will tell you though, one of the things you can also do, since we're playing around, is, are y'all still seeing the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
We're seeing April Kelly Jones, the Handed College Trilogy.
Oh
Okay.
yes, now my images came back. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. So, there was another one. I'll find it for next time. That is a. There's another one. Like I said, for next time. There's another one that is the Hit World covers, the first 3, against a background with for an ad. It was an actual ad that I ran. But what was the question about this?
She wanted to
I
know.
think people just wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, what I did is I brought in the covers themselves without all the typography. And then the backgrounds were different. So I had to then, once they were all in, and there's a feature in Clip Studio Paint called Blend. And I took the, naturally that dog just won't shut up. Are y'all hearing that real bad in the background?
We can
No,
hear
it's
it's
not
not
that
loud.
bad.
It's
All
fine.
right. I'm going to close the door. I don't think it'll help, but I'm going to close the door.
So during that time, guys, put your question together. We have about like 15 minutes because we have another class which starts at 4 o'clock. So
Okay, all right.
15 minutes
Just real
left.
quick.
Yeah.
I used the feature where you can lift parts of it and move it around, moved it into place, and then used there's a tool called Blend. and used the blend tool to integrate it all so that it all kind of looked, the same. The hard part with any of this is not the doing, because once you've learned how to do it, I mean, you know how to do it. The hard part is figuring out the composition. And for example, these books are not in order. That's actually book one, but it didn't look right over here. And so I changed them so that it would look more visually appealing.
Yeah, I mean, gives us this progression. It's like a camera zoom. It's like a serial comic book kind of. You can read it left to right.
Yep.
And it's zooming in at it onto her, into our faces and stuff. So it's just super dynamic that way.
And so this, like I said, this was just an ad. And so when I go back, what I really need to do is her fingers are messed up. So I need to go back and fix that. Well, maybe, no, they're not that messed up. I would change a few things, but when I did the cover for the print book, I changed it. She's not holding a gun. She's actually holding a sword, a flaming sword. So, like I said, once you've done any of this kind of stuff, from that point forward, you can manipulate it almost any way you want. There is one thing I want to try and find while you guys are looking at that real quick. If I
The other
can't
thing
find
is that gun is showing us to look at the Judgment Day book of the little picture in the middle. This gun it pulls our eye.
Okay, so I do want to show you this. Okay, since y'all have seen this is the print cover without no fonts or anything. This is just the image, but this is the print cover for the third one that you're looking at there. And so there was something that we looked at and we said, I'd really rather have this. And so that's what we did.
Bill, while that's loading, can you talk about how you got the characters to stay so consistent for each of the three images? Because I know part of AI for like beginner artists or those who are still working it out, it's hard to get the same character every time. So that'd be great. Thanks.
So there's two ways. One, can y'all see that?
Yeah, and the flaming sword too. Very cool.
Well, I just wanted to show you how I changed it. Everything else is the same, but the flaming sword, and then just for Manon's sake, I left this like this as being kind of indistinct so that I could put writing over it, for the back cover, because that's the print cover.
I like it.
Yeah, that's really smart. So that way our eye is drawn to the sharper image of the character, and then the indistinct part you can write text over.
Yeah, pretty much. And while I haven't had it at a lot of cons, the ones I've had it at, it's sold out every time. So anyway, Lynn,
Yes, you were going to talk about the consistency of the images generating the same characters every time.
Midjourney now has a thing called style. And you can use faces as style. So that when it creates a new image, it will consistently take that face and create something almost identical. But you can also use a feature called face swap. And face swap is remarkable what it can do. Where it will take whatever face you want it to take and swap it into whatever image you want it to swap into, but it will do it and it will adapt for images, for angles, lighting, you name it. And John actually put one up in the chat a while back. I think he was messing around, but and there's all kinds of this. Yeah, John put up there's Insight Face Swap, there's CREF --C, which is character ref on Midjourney. There's all kinds of ways to do this. If you're interested in once you've kind of gotten, I don't want to get too far down the road because you know, when you're first starting out on a lot of this stuff, it is so overwhelming. And I don't want you guys to be going, oh my God, I'll never learn all this. Because yes, it's a learning curve, but it's a learning curve that's you're really kind of are going to be better off if you do go down this road. And it as long as you understand that you're not going to master it in a week and don't try, you're going to start learning things in a progressive way that makes you a better author a year or 2 years from now in your ability to get your books out there and get people to buy them, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. Anybody who says I'm not here to make money, well, okay, but do you want people to read your books? And the answer is usually, well, yes. In that case, the only way to really measure it is by how much money you make, unless you're just handing them out to people. And I don't know anybody that can afford that. I don't do cover work, Brandon. Thank you. Brandon asked my rates for commission cover work. I don't do cover work. This is what I'm trying to teach you guys to do. I do all my own covers. I do covers for Hit World Press, and that kind of thing. But no, I I have my hands full as a writer.
So
Oh, well,
we've been an hour
yeah.
and 38 minutes together. And I want also
Yep.
that people know that we're going to have a session probably every month and keep this series going. And we're going to invite other authors once we exhaust all your knowledge, which may take a while. So in the
And
meantime,
I know quite a few people who are more successful than me, and I'll tell you one person that you need to get on here and absolutely pick her brain and not let her leave until you've scoured it is Stacy Jones.
yeah, she's one of the one we want
Stacy
to
sells
invite.
strong books.
So just as that, I just want to say a big thank you for your presentation and your career and your book cover workflow. It was really inspiring to hear about your journey and how you grow as a writer. Your tips creating books cover were super helpful, and I am sure they all be useful for many of us. I appreciate that you were open and sharing both the ups and downs of your experience. It was great to learn from someone with so much skills and generosity into sharing your knowledge. So thank you so much.
People help me along the way. If I can help others, that's what I want to do. If you're at all interested, you can go to my Patreon. I do have a free tier, and like I said, the class it's open to you guys. Not open to everybody, but it's open to people in here because you've proven you're serious enough to be here. If you're at all interested in something like that, so it's patreon.william/William Alan Webb.
Yeah.
Bill, maybe if you want to drop that link, if that's okay, Manon, because I know that our Stacy will be there for writing class this week, right?
She's our guest this week. We're doing a romantasy anthology is our next anthology. And so she's going to be, well, thank you, John. She's going to be, well, it's two Bs. And she's going to be our special guest doing some critiquing at the next one.
Yeah, I know that me and John Z are in the class, so I'm really excited. And I did remind John if he can send in his homework as well, if possible. Yeah. Otherwise, just come and observe. And if anyone else wants to as well, because I was in the last class and it's absolutely fantastic. So yeah. I really learned so much.
It is a paid class, so I just want everybody to understand that. But like I said, it's $5 a month.
Yeah.
Yes. And if it's okay, Manon and Bill, I do have one last question for the group. I feel that with everything that you've been teaching us and sharing in your own writing journey and career and with the book covers, I find that the biggest thing about your work is that it's so emotionally resonant. And if you wanted to say just a few words about it before we wrap up here, that'd be great, Bill. Thanks.
Well, and thank you for saying that. Everything in the book is emotional resonance, and um, and I'm going to precede what I'm saying here because the one thing that AI has not yet gotten is any insight into the human condition. You know, we're all humans and we know how we feel about certain things and all that. So as you're editing your writing that is being done using AI or anything like that, understand that it is not going to understand from a real perspective what it's like to be you. And so do your best to get inside your characters' minds and understand what's going around them in the world, and don't just describe things to advance the plot. Try to be that character as much as you're humanly able to, and then tell us what's going on around you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you over describe, you can always get rid of it in the editing, even though it's like, cutting yourself. It's painful, but it can still be done. So thank you for saying that, Lena. I appreciate it. I really care about my characters more than I do the plots.
Absolutely. I'm definitely mean it, and I can see that. And when you tie it back to what you said earlier about how it's the characters that readers read for and who are loyal for, that makes perfect sense, because we want to be there with them. We're experiencing this emotional journey with them, and that's what it's really all about at the core. We're all in this together.
Yeah, exactly. And if you and where authors will fail is, especially when they get big enough, is a lot of times they will stop doing that to the same degree. And
yeah, that makes sense. You have to stay vigilant to keep it that level or more emotionally resonant so that people keep coming back.
And they run out of new ways to say things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But what you said, if you're a writer, you write. And even if it's hard or you have these blocks, like, you keep working through them.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. If you're a writer, you're right.
Yeah.
That's
Just comes down to that. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you again, Bill. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us that long. And we're going to be back in November. We'll put it into the calendar, let you know when it is. So thank you so much.
Woke up this morning, the sky was gray. Another storm, another endless day. Thought I was drowning in the deep, but something in me refused to sleep. Every tear, every fear made me stronger, brought me here. I'm rising up, can't hold me down. Breaking through, I'm battlebound. The road is tough, but I won't bend. I'll stand tall until the end. Mountains high and valleys low. Every turn, a path I didn't know. Lost my way, but found my stride. With every setback, I grew inside. Every scar, every pain built the warrior in my veins. In my veins, I'm rising.